What a beautiful, beautiful day in every way. And as a graduate of the class of 76, I'm honored to be standing here today. Actually, as a graduate of the class of 76, I'm honored to be standing anywhere today. But I'm also humbled. I'm truly, truly humbled to be invited to participate in what I know is such a joyous and exciting and bittersweet rite of passage, not just for you students, but for your families as well. A weekend on which my words should and probably will be the least memorable part. But I want you to know this is an emotional day for those of us at the college as well. You arrived here 4 years ago as teenagers, and some of you were a bit unsure of yourselves. Some of you were way too sure of yourselves. You know who you are, or you should by now if you don't. We taught and we mentored and we watched you grow and thrive, but truth be told, it wasn't a one-way street. You challenged us and you tested us, a bit irritating at times, but at the end of the day, enriched us as well and opened our eyes. You made us love you, and now in a blink of an eye, you are leaving us, which is necessary, I know, but it seems a bit unfair. What about our needs? I know you'll leave this campus with great and lasting memories. I can tell you that it has been central to my life. Here I met my wife, Susan, who's with us today. A hero not just for enduring 45 years with me, but because of her trailblazing work to advance the global search for cures to the epilepsy that roiled our daughter Lauren's life. We were married right over there in Bond Chapel. Yeah. Beautiful place if you haven't seen it. Susan's father, Dr. Richard Landau, spent his entire distinguished career on the medical faculty here. And I tell you with great pride, that when he died at the age of 99, that flag across from Levy Hall was lowered to half-mast in honor of his contributions. And here, after my own career in journalism and campaigns and government, I was thrilled to return to launch the Nonpartisan Institute of Politics, an experience as rewarding as any I've ever known. And I know that somewhere here, the small but mighty staff of the Institute of Politics is sitting. See how mighty they are? And I just want to tell them how proud I am of them for the miracles they pull off every single day to make that program the magic that it is. So thank you so much. But thinking back to my own years as a student, I'm actually more than honored and humbled to be here. I'm also a little surprised. And I think it's safe to say were my professors here, may they rest in peace, they would be more like astonished. Because mine was not a stellar academic career. You saw those awards up here. I didn't get within a mile of that table when I was a student here. Looking back at those years, I was exposed to a treasure trove of important, stimulating subjects and ideas. I learned the habits of critical thinking, but I didn't take the time to fully digest or appreciate them. Instead, as someone who grew up in the 1960s, called to politics and news by the idealism and activism and profound struggles of that era, my attention was drawn more to the city than to the college. Chicago itself was the greatest attraction. It was a time of racial, cultural, and generational divisions even greater than today's. There was rioting in the streets of our cities, the assassination of our leaders, a deeply unpopular war halfway across the world that would claim 50,000 American lives, and a government that lied to us about it. It felt as if things were coming apart, and Chicago, where ghettos had burned and baton-wielding, police-battered anti-war protesters at the Democratic National Convention, it was right in the middle of it. Now, the college at that time was much more inward and monastic, focused squarely on the life of the mind. But I came to Chicago because I was focused on the life of the world. And since there was no Institute of Politics then, I created my own pathways to experience it as a fledgling journalist. The problem was I wound up spending a lot more time experiencing than studying, more hours covering the news and political events than hitting the books at Regenstein. And all this caught up with me in my final quarter. In order to graduate with my class, I had to finish the work from 5 previous courses and take 4 new ones. And I had to graduate because 2 days later I was scheduled to begin an internship at the Chicago Tribune that I hoped would lead to a job. I worked 24/7 to get it all done, and I thought I had. But the day the final grades were due, I got a message from the registrar. Mr. Axelrod, it appears you never fulfilled your freshman swimming requirement. This really happened, folks. If you don't pass a swim test by 3 p.m. today, you won't be graduating with your class. So clock ticking, I raced over to Bartlett Gym and I found a coach to give me the test. I wasn't a particularly good swimmer, and I told him, look, if I start to drown, just let me go. Because I didn't want to have to tell my friends and family and the Chicago Tribune that I didn't graduate because I failed the freshman swimming test. And he must have heard me because he generously interpreted my 3 variations of the dog paddle as the mandatory separate strokes the test required. And he passed me. I still remember staggering back to these quads on which you sit today and collapsing under a tree. If you give me long enough, I could probably identify it. Depleted but triumphant. Martin Luther King famously said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And one small reflection of this is today, 49 years later, the college no longer has a freshman swimming requirement. That is the applause of grateful hydrophobic students. Now let me talk about that arc of Dr. King's. You graduate at another noisy, fractious time in our history in which the very idea of democracy, what it means and what it demands, are in question as much as any time since my days as a student. Exponential leaps in science and technology offer us hope for discoveries that can help stem hunger, disease, and maybe even climate change. And the astonishing path of technological progress America has led has spurred enormous growth and wealth over the past 40 years. But that progress also has divided us between people and communities who are well positioned to take advantage of it and those who are not. From where we meet today, you don't have to travel very far for evidence of this. Just to the north of us are gleaming corporate and financial headquarters and luxury condominiums. Just to the south are communities struggling mightily in the shadow of long-closed steel mills, which once supported a thriving middle class. Drive in any direction, and you'll find old industrial towns where longtime residents remember better days and their children leave in search of a better future. And with the advent of AI, these challenges, that divide, will only become more intense, as many jobs, including well-paying white-collar jobs, will soon become obsolete, more efficiently managed by machines than humans. These accelerating trends are straining societies and democracies as more people come to believe that they've been dealt out of the game, that their voices and concerns are overwhelmed by the power of elites and money and special interests. And let me tell you, social media hasn't helped. The folks who run these platforms have a powerful interest in keeping us online. And their insight is to incite, to keep us online by catering to our fears, our anger, and resentments, to shove us into silos in which our views are always affirmed but not always informed, to make us feel that those who disagree with us are all enemies and ignoramuses who want to destroy the country. All of this has created a caustic mix, easily exploitable by demagogues and malign actors who also see profit in our division. And it's helped produce another anxious era like the one in which I came of age, when our assumptions about our democracy and whether it can survive have come into question. But class of 25, the word another is important here. We're a country that has endured many periods of disruption and turbulence and doubt. A civil war, for God's sake. The Great Depression. We've been through some stuff, and it's really important to remember that. Next year will mark the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, with picnics and parades and concerts and fireworks. But as we think about that occasion, what's more important to remember is just how speculative, how revolutionary this American experiment of self-governance was. The founders thought democracy, if it worked, would be far better than subservience to a mad king. But being students of human nature, they also had plenty of doubts about its viability. That's why they built elaborate systems of checks and balances, of freedom of speech and freedom of the press, to make sure that people were informed, that government would be held accountable, and that no one branch of or leader would exercise monarchical power. When Benjamin Franklin was asked what kind of government the drafters of the Constitution had created, he answered, a republic, if you can keep it. It was an audacious bet. The fact that our democracy has survived for 250 turbulent years through all the trials we've endured is really the miraculous triumph of hope over cynicism. We've survived because in times of maximum stress, Americans, and particularly the young, took up the challenge, grabbed the wheel of history, and against all odds, helped steer us to a better place. That challenge now falls to you. There's no doubt that cynicism is having its day. And your lives have been bracketed by a devastating financial crisis and a brutal global pandemic that has exposed government at its both the best and the worst of government. And it's pretty tempting to watch the small, squalid, nasty nature of so much of our politics and want to avert your eyes and walk away. And believe me, that's exactly what those in power who find the constraints of democracy cumbersome and inconvenient are counting on. So I'm urging you to resist that impulse. I'm begging you to lean in. It's absolutely right. In fact, it's our responsibility as citizens to question and challenge a system that periodically cries out for renewal and real, even radical reform. And that's our history. Time and again, the people of this country, abolitionists and soldiers, muckrakers and suffragists and freedom riders, past classes of graduates of this university who sat in the very seats you're sitting in today. They claimed their power as citizens, sometimes in our darkest and most dangerous hours, and took up the work of every generation to perfect our union. Their struggles and triumphs aren't just parables from the past, but a message for today and tomorrow. As we meet, there's no doubt we're facing profound questions that go right to the heart of who we are as Americans, about the rule of law and separation of powers, about freedom of speech and freedom of the press, about our role in the world and the future of universities and research institutions like this, which have driven so much of its progress. But related to it, we're also grappling with the dizzying and disruptive pace of technological change, the impacts of which are very much at the core of the disaffection many feel with politics and government. And yet, it seems so many of our politicians are locked in the pitched battle over whether the answers lie in the policies of the 20th century or the 19th. Well, you're the children of the 21st century. For you, relentless technological change has been the only constant. You're not intimidated by it, you embrace it, and boy, do we need you now. We need you not only to be vigilant in defense of fundamental constitutional principles, but to imagine and build a world in which we harness change for the greatest good rather than allowing it to harness us. The late Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis said, "The most important office in our democracy is the office of private citizen." Regardless of where you go from here or what you do, your voices, your votes, and your commitment to the life of the world will make the difference, unless you come to believe that they won't and walk away. I'm betting you won't. I'm betting on you. One of my political heroes, Robert F. Kennedy, Sr., I should add, died 57 years ago today of an assassin's bullet at the age of 42. So it seems particularly fitting on this occasion to remember his words. The future is not a gift, he told us, it's an achievement. I've come to know many of you and what you can and I'm sure will achieve. And the wonderful, nourishing gift you've given me is hope. And for that, I can't thank you enough, class of 25. Best of luck to you in all you do. Thank you.